So today we're going to talk about Bodhicitta. As Lynn mentioned, this is part of the Lama Tsongkhapa series. And there's been a lot of emphasis on the wisdom side in this year. And so then I was asked to come and teach on Bodhicitta. And as I thought about how to approach this, I thought, well, this is part of the Lama Tsongkhapa series, so I thought, well, let's talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's writings on this particular subject. Yeah. So there's a handout that hopefully you all have that's entitled Cultivating Bodhicitta. All right. And what I did was I lifted a lot of quotes from Lama Tsongkhapa's middle-length Lam Rim and put it in here. Really wanted to highlight some of his main points and some of the points that really jumped out at me. I find that the more I read Lama Tsongkhapa, the more I marvel at Lama Tsongkhapa and how profound his writings are, and how every sentence and every word in his writings are very important and significant and impactful. Right? He was very deliberate. You can see that he was very deliberate about how he wrote and what he wrote. All right. So most of you have probably heard teachings on Bodhicitta before. But one of the beauties of Dharma is that we can listen to the same teaching and read about the same subject over and over again. And if our mind is open, then we will continue to learn and to deepen our understanding and gain even new understandings. So hopefully this will be useful to you. And of course, it's always useful to be reminded of the Bodhicitta, the heart teachings. All right, because it's easy to forget about them in the midst of a daily life, and it's easy to forget to apply what we've learned in the midst of daily life. I find that for myself, I'm good about keeping my daily sitting practice, but my big challenge is remembering through the rest of my day. Remembering emptiness, remembering bodhicitta, remembering, bodhicitta, especially when somebody's being rude or inconsiderate. Yeah, so, all right. Or when I have a lot of things to do and accomplish, right? Okay. So, what is bodhicitta? Right? So, bodhicitta is a Sanskrit term, right, consisting of two syllables, bodhi and citta. And bodhi means enlightenment, right? And citta means mind or heart, mind/heart. So bodhicitta is sometimes translated as mind of enlightenment or spirit of enlightenment. Also, you see in writings once in a while, it's called mind generation. It's a slightly different Tibetan term. But those are all terms referring to bodhicitta. So what it is this a compassionate wish or altruistic intention to achieve the highest state, right, of enlightenment, complete enlightenment, for the welfare of all sentient beings, right, for the welfare of all sentient beings. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche really emphasizes that it's this wish to be a benefit to others that's really the driver, the primary part of the bodhicitta, right? The driving force behind the bodhicitta. I want to, I'm aware of the suffering of others. I'm concerned about the suffering of others. I want to relieve the suffering of others. And how do I do that? Well, I'm limited in what I can do right now. And so I want to achieve my highest potential complete enlightenment in order to be of benefit, right? To really be of the greatest benefit to others. Yeah. So the bodhicitta has these two, what I call the two aspirations: the aspiration to be of benefit to others, and the aspiration to attain enlightenment. All right. So bodhicitta is, in non-technical terms, right, it's the purest heart. It's the most expansive heart. It's a mind, a heart that is boundless, that includes care and concern for all beings. All right. So, according to the Dharma, developing this state of mind is very important and even necessary to attain our own potential, to develop all of our own positive qualities. In order to purify our minds completely, we need to develop bodhicitta. In order to attain the highest happiness, we need to develop bodhicitta. And then on the other side, right, of wanting to be of benefit to others, we need bodhicitta in order to be of the greatest benefit to others as well, because of our current limitations, right? We love others, and others, right, our family members, right, they have problems, and it's so difficult to know how to help them, right? We kind of fumble along and try to say the right thing and do the right thing, but it's really hard, right? So, yeah. So with bodhicitta, we're striving, right? We're striving to be of the greatest benefit to others and remove our own limitations, right? Because as a Buddha, we fully develop our wisdom, our skillful means, so that we can be of the greatest benefit. Yeah. So, I wanted to mention, maybe mention a little bit about karma, right? According to Buddhism, right, our happiness and good circumstances are based on having developed positive minds, positive attitudes, right, and positive speech, positive actions, and reducing, ultimately eliminating the negative thoughts, the negative attitudes, the negative speech, the negative actions, right? So all of our happiness comes down to having developed positive qualities, right? Positive thoughts, positive intentions, positive speech, etc. And eliminating and reducing the negative thoughts, speech, and actions, right? Cause and effect. And the highest, right? So what we think, say, and do affects us now, affects our level of happiness now, and affects our level of happiness in the future. It creates causes for more and more happiness in the future. And the most positive attitude, the most positive thought is the bodhicitta, the expansive, right, caring, compassionate wish to be of benefit to all beings. Yeah. It turns, right, the cause of suffering on its head, right? Because according to Buddhism, and we'll get to this more this afternoon, right? According to Buddhism, all of our suffering comes down to the mental afflictions, our anger, our jealousy, our obsessive desire. All can be traced to these afflictive emotions, or these disturbing emotions, right, which disturb the peace of the mind in the moment And then they often cause us to create negative karma, negative, right? To say unhelpful things, right? Unkind things, and to do unskillful actions. Yeah. And then underneath those disturbing emotions is really two things: the misconception of reality, the fundamental ignorance, believing that things exist in a more concrete way, in a self-existent way, an inherently existent way. And especially believing that there's a concrete me that's fundamentally separate from others. Yeah. And then on the basis of having this kind of artificial separation between self and others, then we grasp onto that self as being, we grasp onto that self as being really concrete and real, and then we're more concerned with my happiness than the happiness of others. We're preoccupied with my happiness, things that make me happy, and develop aversion and even anger and hatred toward those things that interfere with my happiness or bring me pain. Yeah. So of mental afflictions, the disturbing emotions disturb our minds in the moment and cause us to create negative actions which bring about pain in the future. And if we look at our mental afflictions, if we look at our attachment, if we look at our anger, if we look at our jealousy, if we look at our pride, really honestly, we'll see underneath them is that self-centered mind, that preoccupation with me, right? There are other factors also which bring about a disturbing emotion. But if we really honestly look, there's I want to say almost always, if not always, this: what about me? That person did that to me, or my happiness is of prime importance. Right? There's this, there's the self-preoccupation, self-centeredness that's underneath those disturbing emotions. Right? So with bodhicitta, we're counteracting that self-centered mind, right? And we become more and more concerned about others, right? And so there's a joy, right, in letting go of that self-preoccupation, right? There's a joy in forgetting about me, making sure that I'm right, I get what I want, right? There's when we can let go of that, right? It's like this burden is lifted, right? This heaviness is lifted, right? We've probably all had that experience many times, right? When we forgot about me, and then there's a lightness that comes about, right? So bodhicitta, right? Bodhicitta is kind of this ultimate, right, attainment of this state of mind that's genuinely, from the depth of our hearts, genuinely concerned about others, genuinely, right, caring, genuinely wishing others to have happiness, from the depths of our heart, wanting others to be free from suffering, and not only wanting others to be free from suffering, taking on the responsibility, right? I'm not just going to, let people, let other people deal with it, right? I'm going to take the responsibility, like a mother for her child or a parent for their child, right? You're responsible, you feel responsible for your child, right? You're not, and your child's education and your child's health, right? You're not letting somebody else be responsible for it, right? You take responsibility out of your great love and compassion for your child, right? And the bodhicitta, right, the bodhisattva with bodhicitta has that kind of attitude toward all beings. Yeah. And so then the self-concern is much, much less. The self-centeredness is turned on its head. Your main focus is on being of benefit to others, right? Not forgetting about yourself, right? Because we're a sentient being too, right? Bodhicitta is the wish to attain enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings, right? Sometimes you hear it as the wish to attain enlightenment for other sentient beings, but that's not actually correct. It's the wish to attain enlightenment for all sentient beings, right? And we're a sentient being too, so it's not that we're trying to be martyrs and neglecting ourselves, but we're actually to attain the highest happiness for oneself and others, then we wish to attain enlightenment. Yeah. I want to talk about that point a little bit later. All right. So I thought to read a few things about, and these aren't exact quotes because I was typing as I was listening, and wasn't, so don't take these as being exact, but I want to read a few quotes from His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche about bodhicitta. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, the precious awakening mind of bodhicitta, which cherishes sentient beings more than oneself, is the pillar of the bodhisattva's practice. There's no more virtuous mind than bodhicitta. There is no more powerful mind than bodhicitta. There is no more joyous mind than bodhicitta. To accomplish one's own purpose, there is nothing superior to bodhicitta. To accomplish the purpose of other sentient beings, there is nothing superior to bodhicitta. The awakened mind of bodhicitta is the unsurpassable way to accumulate merit. It's the quickest and easiest way to accumulate merit. To purify negativities, bodhicitta is supreme. For protection from interferences, bodhicitta is supreme. It is the unique and all-encompassing method. It is absolutely precious and important. Yeah, actually, that last bit wasn't His Holiness. All right. Yeah. So I've talked about most of those things, but the joy, right? We can see the joy in genuine bodhisattvas, right? The joy that comes from bodhicitta, the joy in His Holiness the Dalai Lama, right? The joy in Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the joy, right, in these great beings who have, who are living for the benefit of others, right? Lama Yeshe says, bodhicitta is the intoxicant that numbs us against pain and fills us with bliss, right? So when we have bodhicitta, right, we're not so concerned about me, right? And so when we have pain, right, I know, when I have pain, right, or if I'm like have a really rough night, right, what really makes me miserable is when I ruminate about, oh, this is so hard, this is so terrible, oh, poor me, I'm not able to sleep, right, oh, I feel so much pain, right? So with the bodhisattva, right, with bodhicitta, right, you're not so concerned, okay, so you can't sleep, or it's okay, right, I have a headache, right? It's not a big deal, right? And so even though there's physical pain, there's not the mental suffering that goes along with it, right? And most of our suffering is the mental suffering that we put on top of all of our problems. Yeah. So the bodhicitta is the intoxicant that numbs us against pain and fills us with bliss. I mean, I don't know if we generally think about bodhicitta as being blissful and joyful. Maybe we think about it's something that we should cultivate because we're told, that it's the right thing to do, the right way to live our lives. But actually, when we practice it and we start letting go more and more of our self-centered mind, there is this joy that comes about. Yeah. And then we can see it with those beings who have genuinely developed, full-blown bodhicitta. It's impressive, It's uplifting, it's joyful to be around, right? I think I've told this story before. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I don't want to repeat myself too much. Lama Zopa Rinpoche says something like, the whole thing all comes down to living daily life with bodhicitta motivation. This way your life does not get wasted and it becomes full of joy and happiness. If we have bodhicitta, we live a really meaningful life, We live a joyful life, And at the end of our life, we have no regrets, Like Lama Yeshe said at the time, before he died, he said, I have no regrets. I lived my life being useful for others, So he could die peacefully and happily, When we live selfishly, oftentimes we regret what we've done later. We've hurt those that we've loved, and we've wasted our time, we've wasted our potential, And then there's a lot of regret later, a lot of unhappiness later. But living a mind, primarily for others, in a wise way, in a reasonable way, in a realistic way. For others, there's joy in it. There's no regret at the end that I lived my life hurting others, Because our focus is to be of benefit, We try not to leave this life worse, others around us, worse off than they would have been without us, So, yeah. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche talks about how there's no comparison between the happiness we get from sense pleasures, the happiness we get from, eating good food and, our sports team winning, or, making money, There's no happiness, there's no comparison between the happiness of the big heart, the expansive heart, loving others, having bodhicitta, and, having a good meal, There's no comparison, So, yeah. All right. So Geshe Sherab says, with bodhicitta mind, there is absolutely no regret in our mind. Absolutely, absolutely no regret in our mind if we live our lives with bodhicitta. All right. And then, if we have a caring, compassionate mind, then others feel comfortable around us, They feel safe around us. They don't feel like, they have to be on guard because, if we're around an angry person, we're kind of on guard, for, when are they going to lash out, But with someone with a good heart, you don't feel like that, You can relax, you can feel safe, you can feel yourself, you feel loved, you feel, All right. Okay. So, keep track of time. So there are basically, two main methods for developing bodhicitta. And then Lama Tsongkhapa brought those two main methods together into a single combined method. So there's a method called the Sevenfold cause and effect method. On the sheet here, I said the lineage is from Lama Atisha, and that's not incorrect, but actually I think it's through Maitreya to Asanga, and then eventually to Atisha. So it goes through Atisha, but yeah. And then the equalizing and exchanging self and others method, which is, I went from Manjushri through to Shantideva. And then there's Lama Tsongkhapa combined those two methods for a single method of practice that's more, I would say, more profound and more powerful to bring the two methods together. So generally when we're taught how to generate bodhicitta, we learn the two methods separately. But Ribu Rinpoche says that when we actually practice and try to develop bodhicitta, we use the combined method of the 11 points. And the beauty, so just very briefly with the 7-point cause and effect, right? That's a method that we develop bodhicitta through developing what's called this attractive love, right? This affectionate love, right? Developing kind of in our minds the image of all sentient beings being attractive, right? Appealing, right? First, right? And we develop a sense of warmth for all sentient beings through that method. And I find that method is extremely, extremely helpful, especially if the mind is feeling kind of crusty or hard, right? And then the equalizing, exchanging self and others is turning on its head and counteracting the self-centered mind, right? And so that's really helpful, because I find that in any practice that we do, we can easily make it about me. Right? Like, look at how loving and compassionate I am, right? I hope other people can see how compassionate, right? It's very easy to fool ourselves and make it, right, about me. Or I'm meditating. Oh, look, I'm able to focus my mind, and look how still I am, right? It's a deeply ingrained habit, right, to have everything be about me, right? And it's subconscious even, right? It's not even conscious, but we could be helping others and then suddenly think, oh, I hope they notice, right? Right? And it's not something that we're kind of consciously, right, trying to generate that kind of thought, but it pops up just due to habit, right? Due to imprints. And so the equalizing, exchanging self and others is very directly works against that kind of mind. It's not about me. So it's very, each of those two methods have their own strengths and their own beauty, and it's really nice to practice them together. All right. And Rupa Rinpoche says that's the combined method is one of the kind of the great gifts of the Geluk tradition, right? Of the Lama Tsongkhapa tradition, bringing those two methods together. All right. Okay, so let's get into the first method. So I'm on page 2 of the handout, the Sevenfold cause and effect method. My idea is to go through this. I don't know. We can't go into detail because we don't have that much time. But my idea is to focus on the Sevenfold cause and effect this morning, and then this afternoon, the equalizing and exchanging self and others. And hopefully we'll have time to do meditation as well. All right. So the Sevenfold cause and effect method. Toward the top. So there's the foundation of the Sevenfold cause and effect, or the foundation for any bodhicitta meditation is developing equanimity. And then there are 6 causes and 1 effect. So the first 6 steps are the causes to developing bodhicitta, and the 7th is the effect, bodhicitta. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, just underneath the bordered box, well, box is always bordered. Anyway, the box. He says, a perfect Buddha is born from the mind of enlightenment, right? Bodhicitta. A perfect Buddha is born from bodhicitta. Bodhicitta from the extraordinary attitude. This attitude comes from compassion. Compassion from love. Love from the wish to repay the kindness. The wish to repay the kindness from remembering the kindness. And remembering the kindness from viewing all sentient beings as one's mother. So he's outlining why this sevenfold cause and effect is laid out this way. It's because enlightenment, right? Buddhahood can only come from bodhicitta, right? If we have direct realization of emptiness, that alone isn't enough for Buddhahood. What distinguishes, the solitary liberation from Buddhahood is the bodhicitta and the bodhisattva deeds, the 6 perfections and the 4 means of gathering disciples, right? Those are particular to the Mahayana path, right? And the bodhicitta is the big difference between arhatship and Buddhahood, the bodhicitta motivation. Yeah. So Buddhahood can only come if we have bodhicitta. Bodhicitta comes from having the extraordinary attitude. So the extraordinary attitude is this great compassion, wishing, not only wishing that all sentient beings be free from suffering, right? All sentient beings, right? Not just those that are nice to us, right? But all sentient beings without exception. We not only want them to be free from suffering, we ourselves want to, take responsibility. Right? Well, we do take responsibility for freeing all beings from suffering. And that's the extraordinary attitude. So the extraordinary attitude is exceedingly great, or the high end of the top end of great compassion, right? It's the great compassion that's strong enough to take responsibility. And then great compassion is compassion toward all sentient beings. Great love is the love toward all sentient beings. And then the wish to so the first 3 steps, the viewing all beings as one's mother, remembering the kindness, and wishing to repay the kindness, those 3 together are the 3 steps we use to develop this affectionate love for all sentient beings, to develop the mind that sees all beings as attractive, right, as appealing, right? Because if we contemplate somebody's suffering, and we have a lot of caring for them, they're attractive to us, like someone we love, right? We deeply love, right? They're in our minds, they appear very attractive, right? And when they're suffering, we want them, right? We wish for them to be free from suffering. Right? But if we're mad at our loved one because they've been inconsiderate, right? If we look at our minds, they're suddenly not very attractive in our minds, right? Right? And so, right, when we're mad at them and they stub their toe, maybe we're not so concerned about their temporary suffering, right? But this is one of the points that Lama Tsongkhapa brings out, right? Is that if they're very attractive to our minds, right, like our loved ones, then right? When they're suffering, we have a great wish for them to be free from suffering, right? If they're kind of neutral in our minds, maybe not, right? Our compassion is not so strong, right? Maybe, we wish, we hope that they're free from suffering, but we may not do anything, right? Or ever think about it after, right? And then if somebody we dislike, right, someone who's hurt us, for example, when they go through a hard time, maybe we might secretly even feel a little bit like you got what you deserved, right? Feel a little bit of satisfaction in that, right? Not so much compassion, right? So that's why in this method, right, we need to develop equanimity, right? Even out the attachment and hatred or aversion toward others. And then the next 3 steps is to see all beings as being attractive, appealing, kind. So I'll go through those steps specifically. But that's the order, is that, right? So we start with an equanimity sort of mind, evening out the playing field. Then through the first 3 steps, we develop a mind that sees all beings as being attractive and appealing, right? And then we work on the love, wishing that all beings be happy, and then the compassion, wishing all beings be free from suffering. And then we work on that until it becomes so strong that we're willing to take responsibility for freeing other beings from suffering. And then we ask ourselves, well, how do I free other beings from suffering? Oh, well, I'm limited right now. The best way I can help free others is to attain complete enlightenment. Yeah, and then we develop bodhicitta from that. So bodhicitta comes from compassion. And so I included some passages from Lama Tsongkhapa about the importance of compassion in the beginning, middle, and end, because these passages I found really jumped out at me. So compassion is the root of the Mahayana path. So we need compassion in the beginning, in the beginning of the Mahayana path, the middle of the Mahayana path, as well as at the very end once we achieve Buddhahood. So the importance of compassion in the beginning, Lama Tsongkhapa says, when the mind is moved by great compassion, one will certainly resolve to get all sentient beings out of cyclic existence. However, if one's compassion is weak, deeds that accord with that will not come about, right? So if we have great compassion, we certainly want to do something to relieve all beings from suffering. But if our compassion is less than great compassion or weak, then we won't necessarily follow through with that. Therefore, whether you take responsibility for liberating all beings without exception depends on that, the great compassion. And if you do not take that responsibility, you will not enter the Mahayana. Right? So that, technically speaking, the door to the Mahayana is bodhicitta. That is why compassion is important in the beginning. Then the importance of compassion in the middle. So although you enter the Mahayana, once a mind like this has arisen, if you become discouraged upon seeing in view the great number of beings and their bad actions, the great difficulty of trainings, etc., you will fall out of the Mahayana, right? So I find this very relevant to me, and I think to many of us, right? We, at some point, we develop a lot of inspiration for the Mahayana path. Maybe we go to a teaching with the Dalai Lama and we become really inspired to have bodhicitta. Or, we study about this and we become really inspired. And then gradually life happens and we get stressed and people are not so cooperative, and our bodhicitta kind of deflates like a balloon, right? And maybe imperceptibly, right? It's like we're so inspired and so full of bodhicitta, and then right, it gradually decreases, right? So then, it's very useful to use these methods, right? We need to prop up our bodhicitta again, right? We need to prop up our compassion, right? We just hearing about bodhicitta, right? And not doing the meditation, our bodhicitta and our compassion just naturally, I think they decrease just through living life, right? Through dealing with stress and dealing with all the things we have to take care of and dealing with the difficult people, right? And the problems, right? It's to keep the heart open and to keep this altruistic intention takes deliberate effort, right? And continuous effort, right? So we need to prop up our compassion again and again. And then the importance of compassion at the end, right? What drives the Buddhas to continue to help others is their compassion. They are compassion for others. All right. Okay. So, and then in the next section, the emphasis or the message here is that bodhicitta is the core practice of the bodhisattvas, and is the key, right? And compassion is the key point of the Dharma. All right. So, under the heading, How to Develop the Intensive Wish for All Beings to be Free from Suffering, Lama Tsongkhapa says, if you think again and again about the suffering of a living being, this will generally give rise to the mere wish that it be free from suffering. However, for this mind to arise easily and for it to arise as very strong and stable, to start with, it must be a sentient being who has the aspect of being attractive and valuable. Yeah. So this is what we were talking about before. So one thing that I find is very precious and special about these instructions, right, in the Mahayana, are these first steps of equanimity, and then viewing all beings as one's mother, and remembering kindness, etc., and repaying the kindness. I notice in some traditions, it started off, right? People start off by trying to develop loving kindness meditation, right? May you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy. And when I notice for a lot of people, they find that frustrating because they don't feel anything, right? May you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy. And in this method, it precedes, right, that loving kindness meditation with the remembering others' kindness, seeing all sentient beings as your mother, and remembering the kindness, right? And what that does is that starts to remove the crust that covers our hearts, right? It starts to soften the heart. It starts to open the heart and develop warmth in the heart. Focusing on, right, how kind others are, right? The kindness. And it's not, right, an overnight process to contemplate the kindness, right? But the more we contemplate the kindness of others, the more our hearts become softer. And then when we do the loving kindness meditation, may you be happy, may you have peace, right? Then we feel that from a sense of warmth, right? We feel it more from the depths. It feels less artificial, less fake, right? So that's another reason why we start with the first 3 steps of developing attractive love. Okay. So let's move to page 4 in the handout. So the foundation for generating bodhicitta, the basis, even to develop attractive love, is called equanimity. Equanimity, in the sense, or equanimity, this term is used with different meanings in different contexts. In this context, it means kind of evening out the playing field and removing excessive attachment and excessive aversion toward others, and developing kind of an equal sense of caring for others. Right? Because for most of us, we have strong attachment for our family, our friends, right? We have strong aversion, and maybe even strong aversion toward certain beings. And then everybody else, maybe we have some sort of indifference, right? To start with, but it's not an equal playing field, right? We strongly care about certain beings. We strongly do not care about other beings, and then there's this kind of in between. Yeah. So equanimity, and so with that kind of partiality, Lama Tsongkhapa says that if we don't even out the playing field, right, with equanimity, reducing the attachment and reducing the hatred/aversion, then any love and compassion we develop will always be partial. It will always be biased, right? And it's interesting because I don't know a lot of people who spend a lot of time trying to develop equanimity, but it's really emphasized as being important, right? And there's two main ways, two kind of thought experiments, or two reflections that we use in order to even out the playing field. And one is, from their side, all sentient beings are equal in wanting to be happy and not wanting suffering, right? So everyone, even, right, and this includes animals, it includes, right, people who are very angry, it includes people who are very altruistic, it includes all beings are just wanting to be happy, right? The way they try to achieve happiness is not the same for everybody, and we don't necessarily agree with the way they try to achieve happiness. But if you think about, if we think about it, pretty much everything that we do is in order to have happiness, right? Why we came to class, why we eat good food, why we take a shower in the morning, why we go to work, why we have relationships, right? Because we want to be happy, yeah? And we want to avoid suffering, right? We want to be free from suffering and pain. Yeah, and every single being is the same in that way, right? So from their side, they all have the same wish to be happy, and they all have the same wish to be free from suffering, right? Even the obnoxious people, right? Yeah, that we have aversion toward, yeah. They want to be happy just as much as anybody else. So from their side, they're equal in terms of what they want, right? Wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And then from our own side, so from our own side, right, we tend to divide beings into these three groups of, right, friends, neutral beings or strangers, and the difficult beings are usually translated as the enemies. So those that we care about, those that we have aversion to, and then the ones in between, right? And we tend to think, and maybe not consciously, but we tend to think that these beings are inherently, they're inherently my friends, right? They're inherently, right, from their own side, friendable, right? Deserving to be friends. They're my friends, right? And these beings are inherently annoying and right, unlikable, right? Undeserving to be my friends, right? And then all the neutral, right, the beings in between that are, But if we think, so this reflection is the changeable nature of those friends and enemies and strangers, right? I mean, the friends were one time strangers, friends, right? We've had friends in the past, or, boyfriends or girlfriends in the past, right? Then they become enemies, or the ones we have aversion toward, right? And throughout our life, we look, and friends become strangers, right? My best friend from kindergarten, I don't even remember who it was, right? They become strangers, right? Etc. So so these categories, right, are constantly changing, and then we're encouraged to look at why certain beings are friends and certain beings are quote unquote enemies and neutral beings, right? And so if we really look at that, right, it's because, right, those who are our friends are, they've temporarily, been kind to us, or, have listened to my problems, empathically, right? Or been there for me, or has helped me, or has made me laugh, or, right, that I enjoy them. Temporarily, they've been good to me, right? And if we look at the enemies or the difficult beings, right, temporarily, they've been, let's say they've done something inconsiderate or unkind, or they've hurt me, right? The common thread there is the me, right? What they've done to me lately, right? And then the ones in between are, they haven't hurt us or harmed us lately, at least, right? So they're not friends, enemies, or strangers, kind of from their own side. It's just, right, our minds have, kind of categorized them based on what they've done for us more recently. And the Dalai Lama, he has this reflection. He says, if somebody has harmed us last year and helped us this year, and somebody else has helped us last year and harmed us this year, wouldn't they be equal? Right? Right? Logically, right, wouldn't that be equal? But that's not how we respond, right? It's like, okay, well, you've harmed me recently, so you're in that, that difficult person category, right? Yeah. So we do this reflection until, I'm going to read this quote. We do this reflection again and again and again. And His Holiness Dalai Lama, he says, when you contemplate this way in meditation, eventually you arrive at a point where strong generation of desire or hatred appears to you to be just senseless. Gradually, such bias weakens, and you decide that one-sided classification of persons as friends and enemies has been a mistake. So we're not overcoming attachment in, right, anger and aversion, from the root, but at this point, but we're reducing the attachment and reducing the hatred and the anger, and saying, well, others are not so different after all, right? And trying to develop kind of an equal, playing field. I also want to read a couple of other quotes about equanimity that I found very powerful. I can find them. Rinpo Rinpoche says it is extremely important to develop equanimity. And even if you spend months and years meditating solely on equanimity in order to develop this realization, it would be an extremely worthwhile way of practicing meditation. If you can pacify your feelings of attachment and aversion towards friends and enemies, it will be very beneficial for your peace of mind. And Pabonka Rinpoche says you must work hard at equanimity for months or years on end, because if you spend only a few meditation sessions on it, you will not progress. If you work hard at this bodhicitta training, I can assure you that it is more worthwhile than working hard at and meditating on all sorts of less beneficial things that can fritter away your human rebirth. And, and then he gives examples, such as meditating on deities, reciting mantras, or trying to improve your meditative abilities. So, right, yeah. So yeah, meditating on bodhicitta is, right, so important, right? It's much more important than, right, visualizing oneself as a deity, reciting mantras, etc., like that. Or trying to attain shamatha, shine. And not to say that those practices aren't important, but those practices without bodhicitta won't have much benefit. Yeah. All right. Okay. Then the next three. Viewing all beings as one's mother, remembering the kindness, and wishing to repay the kindness. Right, so these three steps, as I mentioned, are in order to see attractives as having, or seeing all beings as having, an attractive aspect, an appealing aspect, right? So viewing all beings as one's mother. Now, this a lot of people have resistance to. I think this one's said to be one of the hardest realizations that you can get, and so it can be useful to just play try to temporarily put aside kind of the resistance that we have, and kind of a skepticism of past and future lives, and just kind of play along with, okay, well, what if there have been past lives, right? What if we've had countless past lives, right? Is that possible that we've had countless past lives, right? And if we've had countless past lives, then we've had mothers in each of those lives, right? And we've probably not had the same mother in all of those lives, right? If we've had countless past lives, then we've probably had countless mothers, right? So if we've had countless mothers, where are they now? I find that very interesting to do that reflection. Where, if I had countless mothers, where are they now? And the idea of this meditation is to develop the conclusion that all sentient beings, because I've had countless lives and I've had countless mothers, then all sentient beings have been our mother, right? And the Dalai Lama brings up something where he says, okay, well, if you cannot, right, if you have trouble coming to a conclusion on the positive side that everyone must have been our mother, then on the negative side, we can see whether we can decide that any sentient being has not been our mother, right? So how can we be sure that a certain sentient being has not been our mother? I find that easier for my mind than developing a certainty that everybody's been my mother. Really, I don't know about that person, right? Maybe not, right? But I can't be sure, right? I can't be certain that that person hasn't been my mother. Yeah. So, so maybe they have been. Maybe they've been really kind to me. Maybe they've like put my needs ahead of their own in the past. Maybe they've been, my protector and my counselor and my mentor and my, right? Maybe. So the idea here is the mind training, right? Of trying to see all beings as being kind, see all beings as, as our mother, maybe, or it doesn't have to be our mother, right? The traditional way is seeing all sentient beings as our mother, because the mother, for most people, has been the kindest person to us in our life. But some of us have difficult mothers, and that doing that reflection might become an obstacle to seeing all beings as attractive. So we can choose somebody else, right, who has been really good to us, who has been, has really helped us. The whole point is to develop, right, a sense of warmth and attractiveness toward all beings. Having said that, and some of you already know this, is like I did a long retreat quite a few years ago where I spent many months meditating on the kindness of my mother, and my relationship with my mother historically has been okay, right? Not great, like we weren't close. I had problems with her when I was a teenager, but I had some issues with my mom, like most of us do. And I spent a lot of time like meditating every day, day after day, meditating on the kindness of my mother. And it was a life-changing experience for me. It was so, it has forever changed my relationship with my mom. I think before I did that, I would easily get irritated at my mom, and it's not that now I don't get irritated at my mom, but the baseline is a sense of warmth and appreciation for her, which is actually just the second step, remembering the kindness, like just and doing that reflection over and over and over again, right? My mom who put my needs in front of hers, right? Who would pick me up when I was crying, when I was a baby, right? The time when I couldn't do anything for myself, right? I couldn't eat myself. I couldn't go to the bathroom myself. I couldn't bathe myself, right? She was there, right? To feed me, to pick me up, to comfort me, to bathe me, to change my diapers, right? She was there to protect me. She lost a lot of sleep over me, right? She couldn't sleep through the night because she had to get up and she wanted, right? She wanted to get up and comfort me in the middle of the night. And so she lost a lot of sleep for many months, if not years. And then she worried about me, and she continues to worry about me, right? And, and she gave up, she gave up some of the things that she wanted. She gave up some of her dreams for me, right? She gave up her career in nursing so she could stay home with her kids, right? She gave up. And so I would reflect on this. And one thing that really got me, it's so interesting what puts you over the edge. My mom used to make me these pretty dresses. She used to make me my clothes, you know. And what she would do is she would wait till the kids would go to bed, and then she'd get up, you know, on the sewing machine and make me these pretty dresses. And for me, that was just like this, you know, opened the tear gates for me. It's like, here she was exhausted, and, you know, and the kids are finally in bed, and she could just, you know, maybe just sit down and read a book or watch TV, and she was making these dresses for me that I didn't even appreciate, right? It was just, you know, so do, you know, when we try to remember our mother's kindness, you know, just really making it personal, right? Making, like, thinking about what things did your mom do, you know, and really reflecting on that over and over again. And right, none of our mothers are perfect, right? They all have things that they've done, right, that we don't like, or we wish they would have been different in a certain way, right? But we can, for most of us at least, we can say for sure that she really tried, right? She really, you know, she put her needs in front of ours. And if nobody took care of us when we were really small, we wouldn't be alive today, right? It's like, how many times, right, the little kid is wanting to stick their finger in the light socket, or, you know, I remember one time, well, my mom tells the story of one time I was turning on and off the gas stove, you know. She's like, don't do that, right? Or, you know, they put the baby barriers, right, so you can't fall down the stairs, right? It just, right, like, in, you know, those of you who are mothers know a lot better than I do. And I remember there was a period, you know, I don't have kids, but I remember there was a period when I was, you know, all my friends had kids, right? Little kids, and trying to have a conversation with my friends was really difficult, because one eye was always on their kid, making sure they're not, right, getting themselves into trouble and not hurting themselves, right? So, right, and that's what mothers do. Yeah, so we reflect on this, and the more we reflect on it, the more, yeah, our hearts get softened. And, you know, and there was a period when I was reflecting on this, and I would just, you know, tear up, right? It's amazing, right? Like, no other human being puts us first, like, you know, other than our parents, right? So, yeah, so that softens the heart. You know, that somebody did that for us, and somebody cares about us that much. And not only in this life, but in all our lives, right? In countless lives. So it's countless beings have done that for us. Wow, right? That's amazing. That's mind-blowing. When we think, well, countless beings have done that, right? So meditating, right, on those, all sentient beings have been our mother, and remembering their kindness is very, very powerful. And then the third step is the wishing to repay the kindness. So it's just natural, right, when we really appreciate what someone has done for us, right? Somebody who's been there for us when we really needed it, right? When we were down or when we needed it, right? Naturally, we want to repay their kindness. Naturally, right? I want to take my friends out to dinner who, you know, let me stay at their house, right? And like that. So the natural next step is to wish to repay the kindness. And then Lama Tsongkhapa talks about, well, how shall I repay the kindness? How shall I repay the benefit? And the best way to repay the benefit is to help free others from suffering forever, right? Like, and this really requires having done the reflections and the small and medium scopes of the Lam Rim, of really understanding the downsides of samsara, right? How samsara, right? Even if, right? Beings don't appear to be suffering right now. Maybe they're really successful, maybe they're really happy, maybe they really have a loving family, maybe they're really comfortable. But in samsara, right, things will definitely change and suffering will definitely happen. On the gross level, the gross is suffering, but then there's the suffering of change and the pervasive compounded suffering. The pervasive compounded suffering, the suffering of we're not in control, right? We're under the control of karma and afflictions, right? And due to being under control of karma and afflictions, then we continue to create the causes for pain and suffering in the future. Right? So the only way to be free from suffering forever is to remove the afflictions. Stop creating negative karma by removing the afflictions. How do we remove the afflictions? By realizing emptiness. Yeah. As long as we're in samsara, suffering will continue to happen. That's just the nature of samsara. So understanding that, we don't just want to repay the kindness by taking them out to dinner or, buying them a present, right? We want to repay their kindness by freeing them from suffering forever, right? To help wanting to help liberate beings from suffering, remove the cause of suffering, right? So Lama Tsongkhapa talks about that. Also helping them in the, more immediate and conventional way, right? If somebody's hungry, giving them food, right? If somebody needs help crossing the street, of course, we don't say, well, I'll help you get liberated, but I won't help you across the street, right? We help where we're practical, right? And help them in whatever way is needed. And we want to free them from suffering forever. And there's this passage in the Middle Length Lamrim as well as the Lamrim Chenmo that Lama Tsongkhapa, he brings up this kind of example of imagining your mother who is blind and insane, who's walking along and stumbling along a precipice, right? And he says, whoa, who can she count on to help her, right? He says, well, if not for her, if her child won't help her, who will, right? And so that the blind and insane is analogous to wandering in samsara. It's his analogy, right? Because blind in the sense that sentient beings are blind, in terms of the ignorance of not seeing that things are empty of inherent existence. And as well as blind, but not seeing the true causes of suffering and the true causes of happiness, right? Right? Sentient beings want to be happy, right? We all want to be happy. But most of us are creating causes for more suffering without understanding that we are. We are by pursuit, right? By justifying and, right? Well, through our mental afflictions, right? Through becoming angry and justifying that anger, and through retaliating, that we think is going to bring us some temporary satisfaction. But ultimately, if we understand karma, we're creating the causes for more suffering, right? Yeah, maybe I told that person off and made them feel bad, and maybe I feel a little sense of satisfaction right now, but we've just created a huge obscuration in our mind, and we've created a karmic imprint in order to be the target of that kind of action in the future. Yeah. If we speak harshly to others, right, we're creating the karma for others to speak harshly to us. if we act inconsiderately toward others, we're creating the karma for others to be inconsiderate to us in the future, right? So this is and this really we can only understand through really contemplating a lot, right, in the small and middle scopes of the Lam Rim, of what is a true cause of happiness, what is a true cause of suffering, and having mental afflictions, inevitably it will create suffering for us. Yeah, inevitably it creates tension and unhappiness now, and then it deposits an imprint in our mind for us to suffer in the future. Yeah. So sentient beings don't understand that, right? Like in the world now, right, we see so much selfishness and so much greed and so many shenanigans, right? And right, and and people are doing really unconstructive or destructive things, thinking that it's going to bring them what they want, right? Thinking that it's going to bring them happiness, right? Maybe it will bring them power or influence or money, right? But if you really look at the minds of people creating a lot of trouble, well, not that we can see their minds, but you can sense it's not coming from happiness, right? It's not coming from happiness. And then they're obscuring their mind and they're creating causes for so much suffering in the future. So, yeah. So how do we really benefit others is to try to help free them from this cycle of suffering, help free them from their mental afflictions, and free them from negative karma, and free them from ignorance. So that's the idea. Try to free others from psychic existence. All right. Do we need a break?
It's almost lunchtime.
Yeah, there's 26 minutes left according to this.
Not enough time for a break.
No time?
No.
Okay. All right.
Unless you need one.
No, it's fine. All right, so those first 3 steps. Recognizing all sentient beings as our mother, remembering the kindness, and wanting to repay the kindness. So through the reflecting on that, right, the result is attractive love or affectionate love, the love having a sense of warmth toward others and feeling that others are attractive. And all are attractive, right? And in a relatively even playing field is the idea. And then next, then we develop great love, great compassion, and the extraordinary attitude. Right? So the great love in the next step is, thinking how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, right? May they have happiness and its causes, and I myself will cause them to have happiness and the causes, right? Like in the 4 immeasurables, right? May you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy. How wonderful if you were happy, may you be happy. May you have peace. And the first line under this section is the observed object of love is sentient beings who do not have happiness. And that jumped out at me as being significant, is seeing in our minds that other beings do not have happiness, and all sentient beings do not have perfect, pure, genuine, lasting happiness, right? And I say that because, oftentimes we think, oh yeah, they're fine, they don't have any problems, right? Those people who are right, the beautiful, rich, right? But all sentient beings do not have true lasting happiness, right? And if we recognize that deeply, that others don't have happiness, then naturally more like our love becomes more genuine, right? Our compassion becomes more genuine. Yeah. So especially, right, on the basis of having warmth and seeing others as being attractive, that along with a genuine understanding that they lack happiness and that they're suffering, they have problems, they have pain, right? Those two together bring genuine, heartfelt love and compassion, right? May you be happy, right? If I wish happiness to someone I think already has happiness, it's just kind of going through the motions, right? But if I understand, oh, that person, right, not only has, right, the more we understand, right, the plight of sentient beings, the genuine plight of sentient beings is, right, as having a lot of dissatisfaction and, anxiety and fear and loneliness and, right, yeah, as well as, right, and then being under the influence of the mental afflictions, not having control over their mind, right? Being taken over by the afflictions and taken over by anger and taken over by obsessive thinking, obsessive worrying, right? Most sentient beings, right, have strong mental afflictions, right? Strong agitation in the minds. People can put on a good play and, they seem to be fine, right? It's like, I remember, oftentimes when people commit suicide, right, the people around them have no idea that they were suffering, right? But they were suffering, right, intensely, but we didn't know it, right? But all sentient beings are suffering in ways that we can't even see, yeah? So meditating on love, and right, love is the wish for others to have happiness, right? And then compassion, the wish for others to be free from suffering. Yeah. And Lama Tsongkhapa says there's no definite order between love and compassion. It's not that you have to generate the love wishing others to be happy first before you develop the compassion wishing others to be free from suffering first. But they are mutually reinforcing and actually two sides of the same coin. Yeah. So we meditate on love and compassion. Yeah, and with the three categories, right? So we're not meditating on may you have happiness, toward an amorphous mass of sentient beings. Right? The advice is to start with your friends and loved ones, and then go to the strangers, and then go to the difficult ones, and then expand it all to all sentient beings, right? And if we just meditate on the amorphous mass of sentient beings, then we have love for all sentient beings. But when it comes to individuals, they annoy us, right? Right. And we've probably had that experience, right? Oh, may all sentient beings have happiness. Oh, yeah, I'm so love for sentient beings. And then, right, you walk out the door and somebody cuts you off in the street, and you're like, huh, right? It's, it doesn't translate, right? When we meditate on amorphous mass of sentient beings, it doesn't translate to individuals. So the easiest ones first, the friends, and then the neutral beings, and then the difficult beings. And I saw a quote the other day where some long-term yogi said, meditating on love and compassion toward a difficult person is equivalent to meditating for an hour on a difficult person is equivalent to meditating for 100 hours on love and compassion toward a loved one, right? A friend. And I've never seen that explicitly said before, but I thought that's true. You know, I mean, I don't know about the numbers, but right, it's much more, you know, impactful on the mind to meditate on, right? May you be happy toward that person who has hurt us, or that person that we can't stand, right? May you be happy, may you be happy. So, not skipping over those beings. All right. And then under the Great Compassion heading, the Lama Tsongkhapa says the observed object of compassion is sentient beings who are suffering due to any of the three kinds of suffering. So, right, so the suffering of suffering, right, that we all recognize as being suffering, right? The being ill, having a headache, you know, having cancer, having depression, right? Gross mental and physical suffering, right? We can all agree that that's suffering. Right, and it's easy to develop compassion for, right, refugees, right, or those who are suffering from, right, earthquakes and hurricanes and things like that, right? Meditating on the suffering of, gross suffering. But then the Dalai Lama says not to stop there, right? But to meditate on the suffering of beings in terms of the suffering of change, as well as the pervasive compounded suffering. And he said, and that takes reflection, right, on those three kinds of suffering. Right, he says if we only meditate on the suffering, you know, of beings who are experiencing a gross level of suffering, our compassion can only be partial. Right? So we can develop compassion toward beings who are suffering on a gross level, but maybe we don't develop so much compassion for the rich and the famous and the beautiful and the powerful, or those that we have, you know, that seem to have everything. Right? Does that make sense? Sort of. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we meditate on the love and compassion, wishing others to have happiness and be free from suffering, until it becomes so strong that we're willing to take responsibility, right? And that's the extraordinary attitude, right? The great compassion that says, I myself, right? Not in a self-centered way, right? But that willingness, I will free others from suffering. Yeah. And then from that, yeah, realizing that we're limited in what we can do now and striving for complete enlightenment, right? So that we can be of the greatest benefit to others. Yeah. As a Buddha, right, it's helpful to understand what enlightenment is and what Buddhahood is, right? A Buddha is said to have the omniscient mind, right? A mind that knows exactly how to help others, that knows others' minds perfectly, knows their karma, knows what to say and when to say it for it to have an impact on the other's mind, right? The Buddha also has the ability to, right, manifest countless bodies to help others, right? For us, we have one body and we have to choose. I can help this person right now or that person, right? We can't be there for multiple people at the same time, right? We're very limited in what we can do, but a Buddha has, knows what to do and can manifest bodies, and also has freed oneself, himself or herself, from the mental afflictions and from the self-centered mind, right? So if we have mental afflictions, if we have self-centered mind, what we do for the other person might not be purely for the other person, right? We may have, right, attachment to what other people think of us. Okay, so example. Like, this year has been my year of the mom, right? And my mom's been, she's elderly. She's been in the hospital a lot. She's been sick. I spent a lot of time caring for her. And I notice in my mind there's this tendency to want to be a good daughter and to do the right thing and want to be a good daughter and want her to think that I'm a good daughter, right? Which is different from doing the most beneficial thing for her, right? And I see that in my mind, and I'm trying to drop the good daughter business, but it keeps popping back in there. But, trying to really focus on what's most beneficial for her, And, right, and I'm so limited in knowing what's beneficial. And I have that mind of, but I want to be, a good daughter thing too, which, twists things a little bit. But a Buddha, right, if you've freed yourself from mental afflictions, if you've freed yourself from, right, any of the self-cherishing, self-centered mind, and you have the perfect wisdom and skillful means, then you can know exactly, right, what is the most beneficial thing to do for your mother or whoever it is, right? How to help them in order to be the most benefit to them, right? And it's all about them, right? And it's not about, getting recognition or feeling good about yourself, right? So, yeah. So bodhicitta is having the extraordinary attitude of taking responsibility to free others from suffering, and then recognizing that becoming a Buddha is the way to be the most beneficial to others. So the sincere, heartfelt, deep wish to be of the greatest benefit to others, and striving to achieve enlightenment as a result. Yeah? Makes sense? And then there's the two kinds of bodhicitta, the aspiring bodhicitta and the engaging bodhicitta. The wish to attain enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings is the aspiring bodhicitta. And then once we take the bodhisattva vows, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to practice the 6 perfections, right? We take the bodhisattva vows, and then we have engaging bodhicitta. Yeah. Any questions on that? Just was rather rapid, but
I think we probably all. You want the mic? Oh, sure. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking about how these teachings resonate so much, and they come to my mind a lot. And when I'm faced with, relatives or dear friends who are suffering, and you see it's samsaric suffering, but it's still, it's suffering. It's the suffering we all experience, and it's very difficult. I really appreciated what you said about the capability of Buddhas knowing what to say and how to reach sentient beings, because I'm so bad at it, especially in those situations, especially with younger people, try it. On one hand, it seems so obvious, it's so painful to be so wrapped up in yourself. But then how do you get somebody, how do you even begin to tell them that?
yeah. No, yeah, you feel so, yeah, you just feel so much of our limitations. Yeah. No, I encounter that all the time. Like, I'd like to be beneficial to you, and I have no idea how. I just frustrated, right? And it's a great impetus, right? To, oh yeah, that's right. I need to practice. I need to get to Buddhahood because I'm nowhere near able to, and our families especially. I mean, I find, my family has no interest in the Dharma at all. It's like these are the people that are closest to me, and I can't do anything for them, right? I mean, except, just try to be kind and, try to be, a good example, and that's it. It's like, and you see them doing things that are just going to create problems for themselves, and you can't, like, what can you say that will help them see it, right? What can you say that they won't become defensive, right? Or no, I'm with you there. Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you see their suffering, right? And probably, through all of your years in the Dharma, you probably see their suffering much more now than, right, in the beginning. Yeah. Like Geshe Sopa has a quote in his Steps on the Path to Enlightenment. He says, yeah, if you don't understand suffering well, you might think, like if you understand suffering well, you see people rushing around and you have compassion for them. And he says, if you don't understand suffering well, you may see people rushing around and think, oh yeah, that's great. I need to do that too, right? And that's very true, I think. Anybody else have anything?
Along those lines, what about people? So people like this, where people that are suffering, and you don't know how to help them, and so you kind of don't want to be with them. And you do have a choice. You have a choice to be with them or not be with them. So it's not like somebody who's in your life and is there, and you have a wish to help them. Is it your responsibility to go out of your way to, like, boy, you could use spending more time with me. I mean, well, I think that would be good for you. But do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah.
But then I also see that as, extremely self-centered and, holding yourself up as so superior. But it's actually a genuine wish. And so what do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's, I mean, there's so many beings that are suffering, and like, who do you help? Who do you try to help? And and I've heard from many lamas, and I'm trying to apply this in my life as much as possible, is, first of all, taking the me out of the picture, right? And just thinking, what is beneficial? What is beneficial? Is it beneficial for that, for me to spend time with that person, right? Is it beneficial? Like, right? Like, it's always beneficial to be kind, right? That's actually not necessarily true, but to have a feeling of kindness and concern toward the other person, right? It's, but how much time you spend with that person, that's up to us. But I think our motivation really matters, right? Is the motivation, right? Is it to purely benefit them, right? And it needs to not be I'm better than them, right? It's not about me at all, right? It's about, okay, is it beneficial? Is it beneficial? Would it be beneficial? And how much time to spend with someone, right, is often kind of a question, right? What's more beneficial? Yeah, and it, and not about, a puffed up, oh, I could really help that person kind of thing. So there's no easy answer, I guess, to that. Or at least I don't have an easy answer to that. Like a friend of mine, I don't know if this will speak to what you're saying. Like a friend of mine, when she went to Nepal, was it Nepal or India? A few years ago, there's so many beggars on the streets, so many people in need, right? And, who are wanting money. And she didn't have money to give them, but what she did was give them her love and attention kind of thing, right? So she went to each beggar who begged, right? And just, and it doesn't take more than a few seconds, right? To just acknowledge that person with love and, right, look at them in the eye, right, and give them love. So you can always give them love, right? And then, if somebody's suffering, going through a lot, I mean, I think it's very helpful to listen compassionately, right? Not give advice, right? Most people don't want advice, right? But, well, I still do give advice, but usually I regret it. I try not to, right? But, I mean, so many people just feel alone, right? And not listened to. So, it's nice if we can do that. I know, what do you guys think? I'm certainly not the expert in how to help people. Palmo.
No, I think your advice is good, and I think we each one of us in our own practice, in our own minds, know our limits, or we need to at least begin to know our limits. And some people can deal with being there more in an adverse situation than others, and compassion also for yourself to some extent. Knowing what the limit is important. But I have that same kind of thing when I go. Sometimes I'll go to the senior center in my neighborhood and bring magazines and cards to put on the free table. They love it. And there's one lady that's kind of disagreeable in a sense. Like she always is, no matter what, her conversation is complaining. Mm-hmm. And I don't see her talking to very many people. Mm-hmm. But I always smile and I say hello and I take time to sit and talk with her and listen to her complaining.
Yeah.
But she really appreciates it. I think it's a way to let off steam for her rather than having to keep it all inside, And the other day I went in, it was, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes before lunch, and I sat down with a couple of, I call really old ladies because I'm an old lady too, but really old ladies, And I usually like to leave when they get ready to have lunch around 11:30, 11:45, and go home and start to fix my lunch. And one of the ladies said, "Oh, well, stay in while we eat lunch." And I noticed myself really kind of thinking, well, I really don't want to do that, but so you make an effort to try to to do something a little, stretch it just enough so you're not going over your top, but that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you made one point, that I wanted to mention is really being, right, we have to be really honest with ourselves, right, about our limitations, about our motivations, right, and really realistic, right? We can be quite idealistic when it comes to this topic, right? Oh, yeah, I'm going to save all sentient beings, right? Yeah. So, and the other thing that I want to mention, that I was thinking about this morning, related to this method, is that, yeah, I mean, we all encounter that. Sometimes, like somebody is suffering and, they're kind of agitated or, and we don't really want to be around them. They're not appealing to us, right? And so I find, like meditating on the kindness of sentient beings, like, right? It's like, check to see what, like, how do they appear in our minds? If they're appealing, unattractive and unappealing, then that's a clue to me. Oh yeah, meditating, right? The first 3 steps, maintaining on the kindness of others. Like, or this person might have been my mother, or this person might have been my best friend, or that like changes everything sometimes. Like the grumpy cashier, oh, that's my mother, then I have a lot more warmth toward that person, right? So I find that's a useful tool for me. And then the other is on the compassion side, like trying to put myself in the other person's shoes, right? And like not just thinking, oh, they're suffering, but what would it be like to be going through that? Like, because with like I've been taking care of my mom, and and she's needed, like she needs help 24/7 right now, and she can't get up and go to the bathroom by herself. So like I've been on night duty, and it's like I just fall asleep and then ding 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 ding, and then right, and so sometimes I can get grumpy. I'm like, oh man, right? And then it's helpful, and it's a really good mind training situation for me. And then it's really helpful for me to think, instead of being grumpy when I go help my mom, to think, what would it be like to be in that situation where you're totally dependent on somebody else, and you can't even go to the bathroom yourself, and you have to ring the bell and have somebody, right? That would be awful. And my mom is doing so well, attitude-wise, right? Not asking too much of me, but she just has to go to the bathroom. What can you do, right? So if I just put myself into her shoes for a moment, oh my gosh, and then I'm happy to help her, right? Or the homeless person, right? Tons of homeless people, right? Just imagine what would it be like to be homeless and sleeping outside on the sidewalk and having, most people not acknowledging you, and some people, right, abusing you, and then, being so vulnerable and to the weather and to other people, beating you, right? I mean, it'd just be awful, right? And then if we just spend a minute thinking about that, or a few seconds thinking about it, then that can bring the humanity into them, and they can bring, our hearts can go out to them, instead of thinking, oh, there's so many homeless people, Oh, it's so, yeah. So anyway, so that's one way I think we can use these methods to really help. Oh, see, okay, I'm lacking compassion in this moment. Oh, am I seeing this person as being unattractive? How do I see them as being more attractive? Oh, I'm lacking compassion. Oh, right, trying to really feel their suffering, right? The more we really get their suffering on this level, the more compassion we'll have, right? The suffering just on the intellectual level won't necessarily move our hearts. It might, but if we feel their compassion, their suffering, then the compassion just comes spontaneously if we're seeing them in an attractive aspect. Yeah. So, All right, so let's take a break, and we're returning at 2, right? I cut 5 minutes into your lunchtime, sorry.
I think we can handle
All right. Have a good lunch.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, and we'll do equalizing, exchanging self and other this afternoon, and hopefully meditate. We have to have time for meditation. All right.